Tongue, the teeth and the lips.
Tip of the tongue, the teeth and the lips.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. This week I talk with my buddy Josh, who's in these Science But Simple episodes, and my buddy Rhys, who's actually in the first episode of the podcast that we ever did, and we spoke about is it ever right to punch a Nazi and general political correctness. Now, this podcast follows a similar sort of vein to that, but in this episode we speak about primarily transgender and sort of our views on gender fluidity or the gender spectrum and male and female and political correctness and using the right gender pronouns and all these sorts of other things, and people getting triggered by things, being oversensitive, but also being reasonable and accepting people for who they are, but where the sort of line is for that, you know. We speak about this man who was, I think he's like 40 or something, he had kids and a family, and he decided that he wanted to leave them because he identified as an 8-year-old girl. There's another one which is a woman who believes that she's a cat and she lives like a cat. I think she poops in a litter box and all sorts of things like that. So we speak about all sorts of strange and weird things. And one of the other things I like about this podcast is it's the first one I've done with having 2 guests instead of just the 1 guest. And it means that when we have this discussion, we bounce off each other quite a lot. You know, we do have differing views slightly on transgender sort of issues, but it's more how society should handle them and regarding gender pronouns. And as I mentioned just earlier, the sort of if someone believes that they're like if they're a 50-year-old man and they believe that they are like an 8-year-old girl, it's one of these things of where the sort of line is of what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. So yeah, we talk about all that, and I will also just add that next week I won't be releasing an episode as I'm actually going camping with my buddy Alex, who's been on the 2 movie podcasts that I've done, and so I won't be about next week, but after that it will be the usual schedule and things, but I can get into the details of that in the outro because I've been talking for almost 2 minutes now. So yeah, I'll leave you to it then. I'll quit rambling and I'll be back at the end. Welcome to Genuine Chit-Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton.
Tongue, the teeth and the lips.
Tip of the tongue, the teeth and the lips.
You know that way.
That's a new meme. It's like,
Ugandan nuggles.
Yeah, I've
For
actually...
whatever reason.
I was going to try and watch a video of that earlier, but it's like 5 minutes long.
It's a bit on the non-believer.
So I've just seen the memes. I'm like, it's everywhere. I kind of have to look it up so I know about it. But I'm joined here with with Josh and Rhys. Rhys was on the first podcast I released, and Josh is doing the Science But Simple series. So yeah, I thought we'd gather around because we live together, have a little chat. So guys, what are your opinions on random things? Let's go. Let's do transgender. Why not throw that?
Just jump in the deep end there.
Jump in there, straight in the deep
Straight in
end.
the deep end with the transgender
Straight
trigger
in there.
warning.
Yeah, we gotta make sure people have got these trigger warnings. You know, we gotta make sure. So if anyone's gonna be offended by this, you know, it's not gonna be some sort of weird thing. We're gonna start abusing people who are transgender or saying horrible things. We're just talking normally, just discussing ideas.
Fucking
and stuff.
transgender people, man.
Oh, he's not gonna say it. He's not going to say it. He's not going to say, but no. Oh yeah, we had to stop recording because I had to mess around with the mics. So he just cut out Rhys saying, but no, and I was looking at him whether or not he's going to say it or not, and he's not.
No, I don't take it back.
Okay. Well, the reason, one of the things with transgender, one of the reasons I want to talk about this with you guys is we actually had this discussion. But we stopped because I wanted to record it because that's what my life has become now. We're talking about transgender, and basically I think we're all pretty much on the same page for the majority of it. We're all just we're fine with it basically. I kind of look at it in the way that if you feel like your mind is one gender and you're in the body, which is the vessel, which is to say it can be another gender. If you're female and you've got a female body and a male mind in that sense, and you think your quality of life would be improved by changing your body, then I think that's not a problem. You know, I haven't got an issue with that. I don't think either of you two do either.
I don't think it's a problem. I mean, it's not hurting anyone. Although you could argue it is a problem because of the suicide rates of transgender people.
Yeah, but is that maybe it's one of those things where it could be that question of like who's the singer? Chris, not Chris, the singer of Soundgarden.
Chris Cornell.
It was Chris Cornell, yeah. Him like killing himself. It's like you could argue that some people just suffer with horrendous heavy depression, and they think that if they achieve or get certain things, it'll make them happy. And if they're like, if they think, okay, I'm going to become a big rock star and I'm going to be the biggest one in the world, that'll make me happy. And then you get to that point, and then nothing is bringing you happiness. You've got a family, you've got all the money you could possibly want, you've tried all the drugs, you've been with all the women, you've settled down, you've got a family, you're winning the world, basically, doing your passion, and you're still miserable. Some people can't handle that, and maybe with some of the transgender people, they're suffering with depression, along with potentially other things, and they think that they do believe that they're in the wrong body, sort of thing, and they change body, and then they're still not happy as they feel like they should be.
Yeah,
but I don't
feel
know.
like it could be a like the idea you're looking at, if you're looking at like the suicide rates in a particular demographic, when it pertains to something like transgender and people that have undergone what's it called,
Gender
reassignment surgery, or whichever it's called,
Yeah.
that they can then be comfortable that they're, in terms of their physical body, that's now matching up to their like mental gender is what they feel.
Yeah.
But the lack of society, it's still to this day, like a lot of, like especially with the older generations, would be much less accepting of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that lack of like societal acceptance of that change kind of like doesn't actually make them feel now that they are comfortable in their bodies. So I feel like now that I've changed and now no one like respects me for that anymore or anything, so then what's the point in it anymore?
I see.
That sort of thing.
So they're like, I've changed myself to be, this is the true me, and people aren't accepting me, or they're judging me, and due to that, I'm now not happy.
Which,
That's true.
if a regular person, I won't say like regular person, but a
Cis.
person a cis person. It's a funny thing because cis and trans are actually like chemistry terms, but
I just want to say I hate the term cis.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm not a fan of it, but
It's just used so spitefully and stupidly.
But people that would identify their gender to be in line with their biological sex would have those same issues about, say, people accepting them for them and all that sort of thing. You would probably end up with the same results. So I think it's more of a societal problem rather than an issue that is based on the transgender aspect.
I think one of the issues with it is, I think we're probably all the ideas that we could almost come up with that aren't like ridiculous and out there are plausible, but not saying one or the other necessarily. I think society is probably causing a lot of people who are transgender and homosexual and all sorts of other things, pressure from society making people kill themselves. But also, it could be also that they were depressed beforehand and they thought this was going to be the thing to change that, and it's not. It doesn't bring them out of the slump, and therefore they're still depressed. So it could be a multitude of things. There's probably a few people who do regret it, who are probably, they do it, and then after a certain amount of time they may think, I just want to go back, and they maybe can't afford it, or they feel like they've kind of dug their own grave in a sense. It could be a multitude of things. I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't have an issue with any of those people. It's more, the more ways that we disagree is more about sort of the term spectrum, and also potentially our ideas of how gender and sex works. So, like, Josh, what was with you, gender and sex? You think they're two separate things completely, don't you?
So, yeah, from my perspective, you have biological sex, which is genetically determined.
Yep.
There is such a thing as what is termed as intersex, but that is hugely uncommon. And what by uncommon I mean like horrifically rare.
Yeah.
And it's essentially, to that degree, intersex, I feel like, is a genetic mutation. It's a mutation in that sort of aspect.
Right.
Whereas the idea of a gender is much more of like the social construct of like gender identities and gender norms and things that men do and things that women do.
Yeah.
And that gender and sex can like interchange in certain aspects, but for the most part that the idea of gender is much more of a societal construct over what sex is biologically. And I feel like it's much more important for somebody if, in the society sense, they can feel more comfortable if they are the other sex to what their body genetically is, and they can have the physical stuff done to correct that.
Right.
Then that's probably more beneficial for them.
Okay, yeah. So, and you're thinking, I think, in a similar vein that I am in the sense, but I think slightly different. Of mine is kind of like the mind and almost like the gender of the mind in a sense compared to the body and the vessel that you're controlling. But it's pretty damn similar. Rhys, are you?
I have no idea because only until recently has everyone started to have the idea that sex and gender are separate things.
Well, yeah.
So is it like is it been officially changed, so to speak, in whatever rule book that's supposed to be in?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's a hard one because it's so, as you say, there's no specific book, or maybe there is. Who knows?
I mean, except there are societal roles, so to speak, for males and females, but to actually define them as separate, I'm not sure. I mean, I've never heard of it up until a couple of years ago when it started becoming a big in thing.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify, we're all heavy, semi-heavy internet users and stuff, and we're all 23, except Josh is 24, but we're sort of same sort of age. Just for clarity, in case people don't know, just in case anyone thinks like
we are three cis white males.
We are, unfortunately, we are. Yeah, that's us.
Take us with a pinch of salt. Imagine any other demographic having to say that. Oh, I am black, so take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. Oh, that's slightly racist, but it's okay to say it about white people, white males as well. Add the sexist on there as well.
Yeah, it has to be because we're the white males of the world. We're the most privileged, and we get the least opinions.
It means our opinion weighs less than everyone else's.
That does trigger me a lot in the sense of that I just think everyone's opinions are dead even, and it's like everyone's having an even platform and even amount of your opinion listened to until you come up with a point that is not that you don't get listened to. You just two people have a discussion and one person's point is stupid and one person's point isn't, which obviously a lot of the time isn't the case. But if that happens, you talk your way into whoever else is listening or even two people involved into coming to a conclusion, and that's it. It's like it shouldn't be, oh, well, you're white, therefore you can't talk about that. I mean, there's certain things of like police brutality and the sort of actual living that experience which you can't say I've been in that exact scenario due to race. Like if I've used this example before, but if I've ever not got a job offer, I'm not worried, and it's never on my mind that it could be someone being racist or someone not choosing me because I'm not male. It's not sexism, not racist. I'm average height, fairly average looking, average hair, facial hair. Thanks, bro. Average facial hair and that sort of stuff. And I'm white and I'm male, obviously, and I'm straight. So it's just like I never have to worry about that, whereas other people obviously do. But to come off that tangent a small amount, or completely, with the gender thing, I think the only real way I'd say that gender and the mind, sort of, or the way I'm describing it, can ever really be two different things, is only in the matter when they're different. Like, for example, me, I don't think I've got the mind of a male and the mind of a body necessarily. I just think I'm just me.
I'm just the package.
I'm just it. But when you believe that your body should be another gender, almost like it's like a railroad tracks almost sort of thing. You just kind of you change it to the right one, and then it becomes the whole you. And the reason I think it's more like that is because my opinion, and I think this is where it differs from Josh's a bit more, is just I don't believe that you should, anything you do, none of your actions or anything that is done should be a reflection on your gender. So it's just like if a male likes cooking and is really maternal, loves ballet, loves all the chick flicks, cries quite often, these sorts of stereotypical quote unquote womanly things, feminine things. If someone does that, I don't believe that their gender makes their gender any less of a man. I just think, well, if it's one of the things where I don't even think, it's almost one of those things where gender it should only really be applied when it's in the medical world and that sort of thing, or when it's not medical world, but when it's something that you have to physically, like if you're going to eat this nutrition wise, men and women's body are different. If you're going to go to the gym, I think men and women's bodies, they work ever so slightly differently. So certain exercises, you have to do certain things differently.
You insinuate that men and women are different?
Biologically, yes.
The thing is that in that sense, I do actually entirely agree with you that those sort of things should not pertain to gender. Like the idea of what is things that men do and things that women do.
Yeah.
Outside of things that are directly related to biology, like certain things that are dictated by hormones and all that sort of thing that do happen.
Yeah.
That should hold no ground in this is something that's women do, and if you're doing that, then that makes you less male.
Yeah.
Right. But unfortunately, contrary to I feel like the three of us agree on this, but contrary to what us three believe, society as a whole probably doesn't see it that way, which I think is where what so-called gender stereotypes become damaging for people whose biological sex doesn't match up with their like psychological gender.
I see. I understand where you're coming from a lot more now with that idea, with the whole it being a societal problem. Yeah, so it's like it's one of those situations where it's kind of like an ideal world sort of thing, where it's like it would be nice if there was never this thing that you have to do something manly, you have to do something feminine, and maybe we'll get to that point eventually. But at the moment we're in a transitionary stage socially to a huge degree. It was so different to what it was like 5 years ago, and 10 years ago it was a completely different fucking world.
I don't think it's a problem. I think it's the way people look at it. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be like, little boys don't play with Barbie dolls, and they don't gravitate towards Barbie dolls.
Yeah, there's a few outliers that do, but in general,
obviously,
in general there have been. I can't remember them to hand. I should have got a couple of them researched, but there's been some studies which I might have to look up in a minute. It was just saying like when you have them isolated from the societal influences, that they still gravitate towards generally the same things. I think with it's easier to say that about women, and obviously when I say this with a pretense that I mean it in no way, shape or form that women or men are better or worse than the other one. They're both completely even to me, just slightly different in certain ways. Women in general are more maternal, almost solely on the basis because they have to literally live their life more. They have their entire life less for 9 months when they give birth. Even if they abandoned the baby, even if you said they did that, it's still 9 months of probably about 6 of those being quite difficult with all the bodily changes and all your suffering and going through all this crap just to bring life into the world, whereas a male doesn't have that. So that, even just at the start of the whole thing, is women are in general more maternal, and therefore, you know, when you see little girls, they love, you know, babies. When you see little boys rarely really care about babies, you know, and I'm still not fussed about babies at all, really. And there's not that many guys that I know that are my age. I mean, sometimes our family member have a baby. It's like, oh, that's cute. And you know, like my nieces, they were lovely when they were babies, and my nephews and that sort of thing. But it's not like, oh, someone's got a baby. Oh, can I come and see it, please? Or please bring it into work. Like, I think it's 2 days ago, a guy who's also called Michael, who works at my work, he had a kid very, very recently, I think 2 weeks ago or something like that. And yeah, 2-3 days ago, he's obviously off on paternity leave. 2-3 weeks ago, 2-3 days ago rather, he brought the baby in around lunch-ish time. I don't have a problem with that. I don't care. People, you know, everyone got up. Well, downstairs. There's like 20 of us, and people got up from their desks. All the women just went straight over there. Just get really interested. I just kept working. I really just don't care. Like, they're the baby over there. I could have just got up and actually done less work that day just by standing around looking at a baby. But I just don't give a fuck at all. Like, if your baby's cute, that's great. Occasionally see pictures of babies on Instagram or my friends' babies on Facebook, that sort of thing. It's great, that's cute. But I don't actually give a fuck. To me, a baby's boring because it's just this fleshy thing that makes noise. And it's like, it's not like having a puppy. You know, when you have a toddler, when there's a toddler, they're a bit more interesting. And they can have, my favourite age of kids is when they have that thing where they can just about talk, but not quite. Because you can have a little conversation with them, but only a little bit. And they can understand exactly what you're saying, and they just kind of plod along their little thing.
Yeah. Well, my own point is, I just hate when people pretend that men and women or boys and girls are the same. So it's not pretend. We are different. And if a boy wants to play with Barbie dolls, naturally, cool. Who gives a fuck? Yeah. Like, who gives a shit? That's what we should be aiming for. Just accepting people. What's wrong with that? Why are we pretending to like bend the rules and say men and women are the exact same? Oh, fucking sister. It kills me inside. It kills me inside. I hate it so much. It's just, the answer is, just don't give a shit. If a woman wants to be a man, cool. Good for you. Very happy. Vice versa. It doesn't matter. It's really, really frustrating. There's such a massive deal about it. I understand the pushback against people who are outrightly horrible to transgender people and not accepting. Yeah. Which is good, but it just goes so beyond that. And it boggles my mind how there's so many deep, complex political aspects of it. And it's really quite simple, actually. Just care about yourself and the people you immediately in your immediate vicinity and your family and your friends. But if someone wants to do anything that doesn't hurt anyone else, cool, do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like you want to go hiking, you want to start crochet, you want to do this, you want to do that. Okay, go ahead. I don't care. Yeah, nice little knitting.
Bold.
Actually, what's
I think it's crocheting.
Crotcheting.
I might be wrong here. I have no idea.
Is crochet?
No, crochet. I think it's both. Like this.
We don't know this because we're not women.
Fire in the
Well,
mouth.
it's clearly a sexist remark. However, it has some basis in truth.
However, it's still it's a
also
joke.
said-
You meant it in
it's
jest.
also said in jest.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't matter. It's like, and even if it was, it's like, no. The thing is, what the problem is if you, like I in the past, I had an argument with someone because I said in general men are stronger than women, and I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form at all that men are superior to women or that women are inferior or anything like that. I meant it purely on a biological basis. In general, there are many outliers. Many women could beat the shit out of me and are much stronger than me. But I'm not debating that in any way, shape, or form. But if you look at it as a general world average, the males are generally stronger and bigger, have bigger muscles and stuff than the females. That's just it. And someone argued with me about that and said, no, they're not. It's just your opinion. And it's like, but if you actually go online and you look at it, you find out that the main reason for it is testosterone, and testosterone is one of your hormones make a massive difference on sort of how your body grows, how you react to things. Like if males take way too much estrogen and stuff, they can get there's that thing in Fight Club, the man titties. You have a lot of estrogen, you can get breasts. You have a female who has a testosterone imbalance. I know a couple of women who've got that, and they get more hair growth around their face and there's one woman I've been with and she's had a little bit of a snail trail. It's a big deal, I don't care. It's just because of its hormonal imbalance, because hormones change your body, and males produce more testosterone and females produce more estrogen. And that's not to say one or the other's better or worse than the other. It's just, that's how biology works. Women have periods, men don't. Like, that's not insulting. It's not saying women are worse. Like, yeah, how dare there's women, they're disgusting. Yeah, they bleed for it's only 5 days up to a week normally. That's all, 3 days a week or that sort of thing. This proves how bad my sex education was in things. I've got general ideas. But,
I think in general, people deep down don't care that much. They're just so entwined in the whole liberal thing. It's just
the knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
Side of it is where it's funny. Yeah. It's actually funny, Josh. I was talking about something in the similar vein to this to you earlier. How when I'm in a shop and there's just like especially when you go in those small shops, a lot of the small corner shops, and the shop owner who's behind the till can just see you the entire time, and there's no one in there. And I like to take my time if I'm not. I either know exactly what I want, or I just go in there for a snack and I try and figure things out. And if I go in there and want to spend a bit more time in there, I feel really uncomfortable because I feel like they're staring at me, and I feel like if I'm looking like I'm taking too long and walk between too many aisles and don't pick anything up, it looks like I'm nicking stuff, and it's like I don't want to have that impression, so I just take much quicker time doing everything and not actually buy necessarily the thing I even want as much, just to kind of because I haven't had time to look at everything in the same amount, and that's all because of this person watching me, and I don't want them to think I'm a shoplifter. And it's like people.
So what you're trying to say is you're paranoid.
I'm paranoid, yeah. And people don't want other people to think they're racist, they're sexist, obviously, because especially when you get labelled these sorts of things, it's very hard to kind of shake. Trying to prove you're not a racist is a paradox. You even using examples to prove you're not racist is the only way to do that is to point out ways that you've
recognise where you could have been racist.
This group of black people I was completely fine with. It's like, yeah, but you're now singling them out as black people. That's the problem. You're making them seem like a different race. That's the problem with it. But anyway, not to divulge on racism, but yeah, it's people too scared. People that they're too worried about other people doing it, and then some people trying to one up each other from how liberal and how progressive they can be. It's like, I'm so accepting. I accept literally everyone so much that I actually reject people who don't accept people. But it's like, but that's actually the opposite of what you're trying to do.
I've seen videos on YouTube. There's a guy called Stephen Crowder, and he goes to this like liberal rally thing, and he goes like undercover, and he's got two girls who were organising it. It's like some uni thing in America, and they've never met before, but they met at the event. Yeah. And they gave him a ride to wherever they were going to pick it or what the hell they were going to do. And they were just kind of allowing the conversation to flow with them and just to see where it goes and sitting cameras in the car. And it's literally like a competition of who could be more offended. They were like, eventually, him and his mate were like sort of fucking with them and like pretending that his mate was really offended by something they said.
Right.
And that's never mind the fact that's hilarious. But yeah, it's like a competition and it's so cringy. It's just like, can you guys just chill out? Like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I never thought about it. He was basically, he claimed that he was hermaphrodite. Clearly not, but they believed him anyway. And you had to sign out. You have to fill out this like crazy long application form to go to this event. Right. And it had on the gender part or sex or whatever it was. It had a list of crazy list of things, but didn't have a hermaphrodite. And he's pretending to be really, really funny about it. And she was like, no, I'm really, really sorry. I actually thought about that. And she was so unbelievably apologetic. And he was
so
like...
pandering.
It was so... Yeah, it was just so cringe.
Pussyfooting around and not being able to tell someone,
Yeah.
like... You can just apologise for it, but it's just like, if
alright,
you didn't have that.
So you know that's not a big deal. Come on. Like, if someone's... I think... This is basically how arguments start, to be fair, but it's a reason arguments start like this, because this is just the basis of human nature. If someone says something and it sounds stupid to you, and you have no reason to be necessarily super nice to them, and you can just be kind of dismissive as opposed to telling them they're stupid or you disagree, you can just kind of not pander to them, and you don't have to pretend, and you can speak up and say your point. You don't have to worry about offending people. If the other person gets offended by the fact that you are voicing your opinion against theirs, and they are unbelievably insecure, and they're not, like, so what if they're offended? If they're that kind of person, they're going to be offended at everything.
It's like, well, there's a great Australian comedian, Steve Hughes. He's so funny, and he's got this one bit, and it's from quite a while ago now, so I'm not spoiling it. But you can find it on YouTube. It's brilliant. You've got to check it out. And he goes, you know, what happens to when did sticks and stones break my bones, but words never hurt me? Stop being relevant. It's like, you know, I went to the comedy show and the man said something that offended me, and, you know, I went home and I was offended, and I woke up the next day and I had leprosy. It's like no, you just offended. It's like, you know, and he was like saying, like, boy bands offend me, for Christ's sake. You know, they're models they're just pursuing a modelling career using this fake pop front of music they don't even write, and just, it annoys me. It takes away from real artists, and he says that, and it's like, I'm not as strongly against that sort of thing as he is. I'm not really that fussed about it, to be honest, but that sort of whole thing of, like, if you're offended, what happens? You get offended, and that's it. It's like, okay, you have to think about, like, what the repercussions are. It's a lot of the time it's none. You actually don't try and be an asshole and offend people all the time. Don't walk up to people and just start blatantly insulting them, you know. But you can't just over pander to them.
It's people who claim I don't know what the cause of this is, but people basically now completely identify with ideologies to the point that that's them. So if you criticise an ideology, something that you should be able to talk about and have an open discussion about, because that's how things work in life.
They take it as personal.
They take it as a personal
attack.
Yeah, so they get offended, because that's what being offended is. It's someone attacking your character. And that's, you know...
You do need to draw a line somewhere from the point of, you can express your opinion, as you said about the whole, like, when it becomes more or less to do with discussing your opinion with somebody, and to the point of being an asshole and essentially insulting an entire demographic of people. There is a line where you do become like actively, like, offensive to people, rather than just expressing your own views on things.
Oh yeah, it's a way of you saying it as well.
Yeah.
I've been very guilty of saying it the wrong way to people.
I just hate when you say to people who get offended at everything, you say things like, you don't have to get offended by everything. And they seem to think there's, like, they just everyone agrees that if you speak to someone and say, you just mentioned in passing, you say, I'm a Christian or something, just you mention it.
Yeah.
And the person you're talking about it's like completely different, and he just goes, what? And you go, I'm a Christian. And he goes, wow, you fucking idiot. And it's like, wow, let me sit here and tell you why you're wrong. Wow, what a fucking retard.
Do you realise there's no such thing as God? Like, how can you be so fucking stupid? Do you not know what the Big Bang is? The God... It's like,
we can all agree that guy is a cunt.
Yes, there's no need.
There's no need for it.
No.
But if you're having a discussion with someone and you're religious and you mention you're Christian, that guy can mention he's atheist. If then you want to start slowly, of course, to not get jumped the gun, start a discussion about your views, you shouldn't take that as an offence. You know what I mean?
And if
there's
you,
an open discussion
if you do it slow as well, it's like you could ask a few probing questions, they could ask a few back, and then they go, "Oh, can we not talk about this? I just don't want to talk about my faith that much anymore. I'd rather talk about something else. It doesn't really, you know."
Yeah.
If they say that, you go, "Okay, yep, fair enough. That's completely fine. No problem at all." And then you talk about something
the
else.
conversation started slow. You probably haven't even gone that far anyway, so it's like, I can drop that. Okay.
Yeah, no problem at all.
You just don't cross that line between disagreeing and, like, actively attacking the other person for their point.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And what can the issue though starts to happen, which I find this is like as I've said before in past in the podcast, I'm like centre left ish, but I don't even know anymore because of the being associated with left a lot of the time can be an issue. But
I'd rather be associated right at the moment. I'm totally not right, but
well,
I'd much rather be associated.
I found that with a lot of I have a lot more of the same views as the left in general, but the way, not all of them obviously, once again it's not a sweeping generalisation, but much higher amount of people on the left are were seemingly worse to debate with than people on the right. Because I've debated with a few people on the right, and they normally are, they're either well informed, or obviously a lot of the time if you go really right, they can be like racist, this sort of thing. But they're normally still willing to kind of, most of the time, have a discussion.
Yeah.
But I find more of the time with people on the left, they're more willing to say, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Or
Oh no, what it is you say a point, or you start saying something that they think, oh shit, you might be able to say something which I have no idea what to say back, and then it gets something embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick my finger in my ears by interrupting him and calling him a racist, or claiming whatever he just said was because it was vaguely to do with race or sex. I'm going to call him racist or sexist.
or bigoted or any
That's
of these
it.
sorts
He's
of
got
things.
the
You say
label.
insulting.
Everyone can see it. You've just labelled him, and then because he's a sexist or a racist, you can now justify not talking to him by taking a moral high ground. So you walk away, and it's like you just so childish. It's unbelievable.
I do still think, though, like, even from the same aspect in the right, you do have the deal of, in terms of the things that you see online and through media, is that even both with the far right, with things like Britain First and BNP and all that sort of thing,
UKIP, yeah.
and then with the very far, I'd probably say that they're probably further right than the Conservatives, but I wouldn't call UKIP like far right.
God no.
Yeah, I see it there.
But like from the same aspect in the very far left, you have people being like so liberal that it's constrictive. That both of those ends of that like political spectrum are vocal minorities.
Yeah, and they kind of meet at the same place. They both have the idea that you're wrong and stupid because you don't have the same opinion as me. And they both say it about each other, but it used to be generally much more of a right trait. But over the last few years, it's now spread to the left, where I think it's pretty much even playing on fields. And I seem to have seen it a bit more on the left now. Of those times you see the YouTube videos, you see people who are interesting, and you talk like Ben Shapiro, those sorts of things. Like, I don't agree with Ben Shapiro on many issues, but when you watch him, and I don't think I've ever seen him like lose his shit, like stuff, yelling at anyone or anything like that. He's just always chill, and like he'll have a normal discussion. I've heard him discuss things with Sam Harris, and I've heard him discuss things with, I think, Joe Rogan, these sorts of things, and they don't always agree. But like we're doing now, we're not necessarily disagreeing to the same degree they are, but you disagree with someone. You can even get a little bit heated and get the volume up a bit and get a little bit more, maybe even a little bit more aggressive with it. Yeah, passionate about it. But it's the moment you start saying, I can't you say you're racist or you're stupid, you're a fucking idiot. And it's like, what you calling them names is not actually achieving anything. Who wants to listen to someone calling them a name? That's the thing.
It is deflection.
Yeah. And I would say I've been guilty of this in the past, more so when I was early teenager, and maybe probably up to 15-ish, I say I was probably guilty of this sort of thing occasionally, calling people stupid when I argued with them. But I've grown up since then, and I've learned, just very simply, it's a very easy lesson to learn of, when you want to have someone respect you and your opinion, and you want to you have to talk to them in a respectful manner. It's not that hard. It's like, if someone's calling me an idiot, why would I want to listen to what they're saying? Like, why on earth? It's like you've already made a judgment about me where I'm stupid. I can't. That you're just basically saying that you're so much smarter than me because you've got a different viewpoint. It's like, no, you explain your viewpoint in a way that you think that I may agree with, and then we can come to an understanding. Not just stand above you and say you're an idiot because you don't know this. It's like, that doesn't help anyone.
So in short, you realise that when you were doing that as a kid, you're an asshole.
Yeah, I've said before, like, I'm surprised I didn't get punched in the face more as a child. I did a few times, kudos to those people, but I'm not, I probably should have been hit a few more times. I'm glad I didn't, because I've got alright teeth, and I don't want them to get fucked up. That's not very pleasant, but yeah, anyway.
I still stand by the fact that the very far left that are like that, and the very far right that are like that are vocal minority, and that the majority of people do sit in the centre left, centre right kind of categories.
Yeah, a lot more people.
A lot of people are a lot more moderate about things.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't, like, you chat with a lot of people. I find that most people I meet agree with me on 90% of things I say when it comes to politics. It's just there's that 10% difference, which changes a lot. Like, there's some people who the older generation, I guess, that the gap becomes larger, obviously. And I think with Dom is a bit different. But generally, most people, maybe it's because of the echo chamber of people I associate myself with, but it's generally, like, even Dom, who's right-leaning, and I'm going to have him on the podcast to chat about politics and stuff at some point. But it's like, he's right-leaning, and we disagree on a few things. But in general, he's a Christian. He still believes that gays, they should have all the rights they've got. It's completely fine. He's got no problem with that. He still has things with, like, a lot of the way people are. He wants everyone to be happy. People should. You generally want everyone to be okay and not be in pain and not be suffering. It's just kind of the way you do that.
Yeah.
And the problem is people get so stuck on their teams, and the political systems in Britain and the US do not help this.
They're very polarizing.
It's basically like you have to choose left or right, and it's like I don't want to choose left or right. I'd rather be able to choose a more centre. But the problem is any of the parties that are more central, everyone's like, oh no, they're crap because no one votes for them. And it's like, well, everyone does that, therefore they never get votes. And it's just like, so we've literally got the left or the right. I generally agree with the left more at the last couple of elections, so I voted Labour. It's like I don't agree with everything Labour. There's quite a few things I disagree with, but it's literally that thing of which one's got percentage-wise more of you like. You know,
you're never gonna have like a party that you agree with in entirety in politics. It just doesn't work like that.
But it'd be better if we had a similar system to France. I can't remember if I said this in the podcast before. I apologise if I'm repeating myself. But
yeah, I think I know what French system's like.
Yeah, it's basically just, I think they have an open thing, and it's basically you can vote for any of the parties, and then the ones that got the two highest then go against.
And everyone votes again.
Yeah, exactly.
Those two.
Unless one of them gets like a ridiculous majority. I think it has to get like 75%.
I'm not sure the specifics, but
it's like if I think it's 75% or 80 or something. It might be, and it's like a really high majority. And I think that can make them just get like straight away.
That would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
it would be a point.
Yeah, but
that
generally, I don't think I've had that very much.
Recently, in the French elections, you ended up with the far right, the National Front or whatever it was, with I think it's Marie Le Pen.
I think that's her name, or something like that. Yeah,
and their party had the highest percentage in the overall vote.
Yeah,
but when it narrowed down to the two parties, all of the other votes flooded into the other party.
Yeah, and then
the far right got shut out.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought the far right were going to win. They were really, a lot of people getting very worried about that because she was all about closing their borders completely, wasn't she?
She was basically all about Frexit.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't blame them. I don't think we should have left. We should leave the European Union, but we are. But I probably wouldn't do it if I was her, but I understand the notion. I mean, the amount of terror attacks they've had.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying
what
you want to do necessarily. I think the problem is when we won't talk about immigration in this one, maybe in a future podcast or something, because that is a really big, complicated thing to talk about. There's so much grey area around that.
Immigration.
You need to go into, but yeah, with the political spectrum of it, it is that whole left versus right. It's that it always boils down to it, and it's with that the French political system, as we said. You know, it's you have more of a choice, and then then you kind of see, okay, because a lot of people who voted for Brexit or when it was Corbyn versus Theresa May, a lot of people I guarantee were looking at that, they're going, oh fuck, I should have voted. It was like in Southampton, you know, if in our city, I think it's the Conservative had 32 more votes, okay, so if 16 of them had voted left, had voted for Labour, or a certain more amount of them had voted for someone else, you would be able to balance it out. And it would have meant that they were only one seat over, which means it would have made a whole complete stalemate, right? So that means if 30 people out of 230,000 people, if 30 people voted for Labour, or a fewer amount of people changed their vote to Labour,
in our constituency
alone, in our city, that would have changed the face of the whole country because it would have made the seats not enough. And I don't know what happened. They may have done a recount, and if they'd have done that, maybe Jeremy Corbyn would have won because they'd have seen how much of a slim margin it was.
I wouldn't say that the Labour Party would have won that election.
Maybe not, but I'm saying
they didn't lose. Well, they did lose, but they would have stopped the Conservatives from winning because the only reason that one seat allows them to do something now is because they can form a minority government with the DUP.
Yeah.
And speaking of things like where you don't entirely agree with any one particular like alignment and stuff, there are a lot of things in terms of the Green Party that I agree with.
Yeah.
I don't vote. Well, I did one time, I think, in local elections, but recently I voted for Labour because I feel like Labour has taken a shift to the left, which more identifies with me rather than being more to the centre or ever so slightly centre right under like Gordon Brown and Blair and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's eventually, to be fair, a lot of people see Corbyn as far left when he's not, because they're so used to seeing the Blair Labour and Gordon Brown years, where Labour was essentially just less right.
Yeah, that's it. That's why a lot of people used to say. I used to say it before Miliband came in. I didn't really rate Miliband that much, but that was around the time where the Labour Party started to kind of change a lot. And that was the point where I was like, okay, I didn't vote on that election because my girlfriend at the time, my mum was had an issue. I had to take her to the hospital and stuff, but she's fine. But that's the only reason I didn't vote. But I would have voted for Miliband. I want that into Miliband. I was a lot less into him than I'm into Corbyn, but it was just like more left. If it's between right and slightly less right, I don't really give a fuck because like I'm so disenfranchised, I just don't care. It's just like I don't care about any of this stuff. But when it's like an actual difference, which it is now,
which is why you've seen so many more people our age and young people actually being engaged in the general election and voting,
and the internet, because young people don't read newspapers really. I don't know if maybe go back 50 years we did a bit more, but I wouldn't imagine as much. But you don't read the newspapers and watch the news when you're younger, so the only information you would either get no information or you just get information of that whatever the media is, which has generally been the right over the last however many years, because obviously a lot of the people that own a lot of the newspaper outlets are pally with a lot of the people in government. They help each other pass laws, lobbying, all these sorts of other things, both in America and in England. It's like, now that it's a bit more of a difference, you've got that, and you've got the internet, which shows some of the things. When there are things that Tories are lying about, or even if Labour are lying about, you've got a more balanced field of what kind of stuff goes on.
Yeah. But just something that's occurred to me that I haven't thought about until literally just now. One of my long-standing viewpoints is that trying to be, in the way that our politics works with the parliament and the seats, that trying to be demographically representative inherently goes against actually being like moving towards equality.
Right, in what regard?
Because, for example, the thing that's struck me now is the fact that, to put a date on recording this, very recently Theresa May has done a cabinet reshuffle,
right,
and said that it's going to be including more women,
yep,
and more people from ethnic minorities,
okay,
to be more representative of the country.
Right.
But I feel like if you say that, okay, there are X amount of people that are black in this country and X amount of people and Y amount of people that are white,
yep,
and you employ 100 people,
yep,
and you have one less percentage wise than there are like proportionately black people in the country than you do in the country does in your company, then just going over words, you know what I mean?
Yeah, basically, if you've got 100 people percentage wise, just do it in it very easily.
99, you need to employ one more person, and the two applicants, there's a black person and a white person.
Yeah.
Do you then employ the black person to be proportionately representative?
Yeah, because the 1% of the country,
regardless of qualifications.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
If you say 1% of the country are black, and you hire one person out of 100,
you are inherently then, to be proportionately equal, you are being directly discriminatory based on those characteristics for that.
Yeah.
And I feel like in terms of politics, it shouldn't be that you need black people to represent black people, or you need homosexual people to represent homosexual people, or women to represent women. Why can't we just be people representing people?
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly it. I completely 100% agree with that. It's that's what it all boils down to. That came in a nice big loop of just people need to stop looking at each other in the way of, okay, you're a white woman who's straight, or you're a black guy who's gay, or any sort of way like that, or okay, you believe in this religion, therefore you're definitely homophobic, or any of these sort of things.
Labels, take boxes, and categorizing people based on their sexuality and skin color and all that sort of thing, like, just because, look at all these like physical characteristics, you are this kind of person. Like,
exactly. There's one thing which is I think I've said this before. I'm not sure if I have in a podcast or whatever. But here's an example would be, okay, this is more of an extreme case. If 70% of white people, right, killed someone, for example, imagine that'd be crazy. But if that happened, that doesn't mean that you can meet a white person and immediately assume that they're a murderer. That's not. You can't. Well, every individual.
So you say is he 70?
Is he 70?
Is that what you said?
70%.
70%.
If 70%, 70%
of white people killed someone,
you
wouldn't be cautious around white people.
Not be cautious around white people, but it's like there's a degree.
You don't assume they're a murderer, but but you should actually probably, to an extent, assume they're a murderer. There's 70% chance they're a murderer.
Statistically, it's more.
Murder is probably the worst. Murder is the worst one, because murder is the one thing that you can ever be terrified of. But it's just like, here's a better one. If 70% of white people were terrible dancers, I was going to say we're terrible dancers.
Let's go with non-criminal stuff. That's probably good.
Yeah. We're just terrible dancers. Let's just say 70%, which is, let's say it's probably true. I've seen a lot of white people dance badly, myself included. If you said 70% of white people are bad dancers, that doesn't mean if you meet a white person, you can immediately say to them, I know you're shit at dancing. It's like you can't. It's that sort of thing.
you can reasonably assume so.
But you can. You're being devil's advocate.
I'm not being devil's advocate. That's true. I'm being objective.
Yeah, but I'm saying
if you weren't talking about people and stereotypes, you're talking about anything else, games, anything where you can apply that exact same formula. Yeah. You would agree.
You can
70% likelihood.
So let's put this on.
No, wait.
50% of people that are white are bad at dancing. Now you cannot reasonably make that assumption because it could go either way, more than equally.
Yeah. Although if you are saying that you can't look at someone and go, "You're a bad dancer." Obviously, because you're being objective, something that's actually a percentage chance.
The things I'm choosing are doing the worst job here of what I'm trying to get across.
It's the whole analogy.
It's the whole analogy is terrible. It's more just like you treat everyone as an individual.
Yeah.
That's it. Literally, the preconceptions you may have in your head of what kind of person someone who likes this kind of music is like, or someone who dresses a certain way is like. It shouldn't matter. It's just like, who gives a shit? Just every person you meet, treat them as a blank slate. Just literally like obviously, you can make a degree of judgment calls on certain things with body language. And when I said about the things they wear, obviously, if someone goes into a business meeting wearing a mankini and a bright rainbow wig, you can probably
give them the utmost of respect for their life choices.
You can't say that's not an appropriate time. You got to question why the hell they did that sort of thing. There is a degree of it if people have like. I don't want to necessarily judge people face tattoos, but if you have your entire face tattooed with a skull, there's very few times people have that sort of thing where you can't make a necessary judgment call. You talk to someone and you're thinking, oh god, they might be horrendous, and then you talk to them and they're a completely nice person. They've just got this horrendous skull tattoo on their face.
And you can't help that. That's human nature, is that we will judge people on appearances. When
it's survival, and that's what the left don't understand as well.
I don't think that the whole you've subconsciously made a decision on someone within 5 seconds of meeting or something. I don't think that's exactly true.
Right.
But there is a certain degree of realism to that statement.
Well, here's the thing.
It's just it's just as simple as observation.
Yeah.
It's back. You can go back to the whole boys playing with dolls and stuff. Almost all boys don't play with dolls when they're a kid. It's okay to assume that your newborn son is probably not going to play with dolls.
But if he does want to,
if he does, cool,
then you can bite.
You can meet someone or a type of person, no matter what kind of stereotype thing, complex you got in your head about this person, but you can meet someone and go, okay, well, this is the stereotype for this kind of person based on their appearance. You can't actually seriously believe they are actually fully that stereotype, because you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, it's not like 100%. Okay, they're wearing a hood up, therefore they're definitely a criminal.
You should be able to also quite easily pick and choose which stereotypes you choose to actually base a preconception of someone on. There are stereotypes that are just not true and ridiculous, and there are stereotypes that are true, and it's just true obviously as a generalization.
Yeah, more in the majority.
Exactly.
That is it. And you can, if you do have these preconceptions in your head and you're thinking this person's gonna be like that, you can keep that little warning flag in your head, in the back of your mind. But once you start talking to them, let their body language, let what they're talking about, what kind of person they're showing you to them to be, then you can make your judgment calls. I've said it before, if you have if you're at a bus stop and you have a 90-year-old woman come up to you and ask you for some money, just look, I'm really sorry, I've left my purse home. I'm more inclined to give her money than someone who's say 30, missing all their teeth bar 4, has is their nose is bleeding slightly, and their hair's all ruffled. Person. Yeah, and their hair's all ruffled and stuff, and they smell awful, and they kind of stumble over to you.
Basically a homeless person.
Well, it would either be a homeless person.
You're trying to say you won't give money to a homeless person?
I'm
joking.
I have given money
to
a homeless
people.
I know.
Saying you're more likely to give it to an old woman.
It's only because, also out of fear, if you had to if you for some reason had to give someone a lift, you had to pick up a hitchhiker for some weird reason, right? And there were two people, and one was an old lady like that, and one was they were the two people, isn't a 90-year-old woman or a 30-year-old man who clearly had a lot of issues. It's you're going to choose the woman out of...
And then she pulls a machete out of her handbag.
It's because in all likelihood, the woman is not going to try and attack you compared to someone who looks like they're either on drugs or more desperate for that sort of thing. But also, in the physical sense, you can probably take on an old woman if she comes at you. You know, like I'm not a
Unless
fighter.
there's a machete. Ah, got you now.
all our women have machetes in their handbags.
Also, if you were to see, you could even take it to even smaller gaps in terms of differences. If it was a man and a woman, they both look moderately shady but not ridiculous, and they're both hitchhiking. You know nothing about them. You know no contact. You're probably, as a man, anyway. I mean, lots of people probably pick the guy, but I'd say probably more likely to pick the woman, just because
I think most
the
people
likelihood of her attacking you is much less than the man, which sounds sexist. But it's like, it's sexist against men, so if any women listen to this and getting offended, what I'm actually trying to say is men are brutes compared to you. They are. Like, we just are. Not like everyone, and it's fine. Everyone else chill.
Yeah,
guys, don't give me I'm addressing you now.
I'm
Chill.
getting really triggered, bro. I'm getting really triggered.
Guys tend to be more aggressive than women. Everyone's noticed it. If you say it's not true and you don't think it's true, you know it's true. Everyone knows you know it's true. It's just the case. That's what happens.
Here's the thing. People use examples of certain things when they go, yeah, well, what about this woman who's stronger or this woman's stronger? So if you have to use single examples to prove against the point, you're choosing outliers.
Anecdotal
That was cherry picking.
Cherry picking, yeah.
Anecdotal evidence.
Anecdotal evidence and cherry picking. Also, we should probably put in a disclaimer at some point in this episode.
Yeah.
None of us are statisticians, sociologists, or anything of the kind.
No.
This is all like
No,
anecdotal stuff.
no, don't say that shit, because then this is the pandering, you see? You know we're not fucking sociologists, we're just
the exact statistics. But if you look these things up, like we're fairly well educated.
You shouldn't have to.
We're not completely misguided.
When you talk about a subject or anything, you shouldn't have to start discrediting yourself to try and get yourself lower down the levels so people take you with a pinch of salt. It's like, oh, come on. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, we're just having a discussion. We're having a talk. We're not having like a thing where we're deciding government policy and we need to actually like every single detail. We can't just if we assumed that more women get domestically abused than men. If we just assume that, okay, if we turn out to be wrong about that. We're not policymakers. We're not like this podcast is our discussion of ideas. We're not saying right. For starting now, we're going to put laws into changes. Like you have to, if you're doing something important like that, you have to research it all and have educated ideas. You do have to research it to a degree. But not every single thing you say. Sorry, wait a minute, mate. Let's just check this for the pretense. Let's source it. Let's do a Wikipedia article. It's just like everything you say.
Oh god, Wikipedia now don't use that as a source.
I just want to say, I just googled it. Okay, just quickly. It said more than 40% of domestic violence victims are male. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I just want to clarify, that says more than 40%, right? Which is less than 50%. Now, I'm not saying in every case women are not going to attack men, but also, statistically speaking, if you look at it, that's saying more than 40%. Even if you say 45%, okay, compared to 55%, and you said that is the only conceit, there's hundreds of ways to check it, if you just argued this is the only way to find out who's more aggressive, men or women, that is still saying men are more aggressive, you know?
It is, however...
You have to take into the
statistic bias,
bias, and that is based on reported ones.
Not only that, but you're talking about the actual subject matter. You can't just take one statistic and make it. I mean, think about it for a second.
But that's what
if
I'm
you're saying over 40% of victims are men, it's like, okay, so you can say that men are more aggressive than women
in that one regard.
But then you also have to take it into consideration how aggressive we're talking. The domestic violence could be a big fucking hard slap to the face.
Yeah.
Could be a hit with an item. It could be also curb stomping them. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
you could be killing your husband or wife.
I want to use that as
also not taking into consideration the potential of like man on man domestic violence in terms of like homosexual couples, and women on women.
Exactly.
Violence.
Now this is exactly why I brought this up, and that's why I had to quickly look at it on my phone, because I wanted to do that as an example and have you to kind of show that prove that me bringing up I've got always one statistic, that the whole issue is so big to even understand one part of it, which even the simple question of who's more violent, men or women, to actually know that, you'd have to spend years, decades of your life studying, and obviously with societal changes shifting as well as obviously, as you've both pointed out, with these statistics, it's like, okay, what about the biases? What's the definitions? You can't just have one study testing one thing. You have to have hundreds. You have to have different areas. Where was it taken from? Oh, there are 300 people in London. Okay, what if it's just in that area of London? That's what the case is. Have you done everyone in Britain? Have you done everyone in Ireland? Everyone in the UK? Everyone in Europe? Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to have so many more parts of it, points of statistical data to even get into that. But also, not all statistical data is reliable anyway. So it is like that.
This is the issue that I have a lot of the times with in terms of policy making as well.
Yeah,
is the fact that it often comes down to some government commission statistics. Normally, to credit, they're normally done by independent bodies.
Yeah,
but it's like single studies, sample size isn't likely huge, and it ends up turning policy making into who has the best soundbite.
Yeah,
And single statistic number. Yeah.
It's
it's an awful way of doing it.
I'll tell you what, it shows that really badly as well, with which shows on how it rubs off on the public, is how many people voted like Labour or Conservative without even glancing at the manifesto, without even looking. Just they go, I always vote Conservative because they're always right, so I will. Or I hate that Jeremy Corbyn person because he doesn't seem like a leader because the newspaper told me he's not. It's like, if you actually don't think he's going to be a good leader and you think that his policies he's putting forward aren't correct, like our buddy Dom, okay, you want to have an intelligent discussion and you have reasoning behind that, that's fine. But people with politics, for some reason, they seem to do it with, some people do it with a lot of things, and it does trigger me. It's just like, when people spend a lot of money or invest a lot of time or do a lot of something without looking into it at all. Just like people just doing really stupid things. But with politics, it seems to be the worst of its, these are some of the things which can, directly and indirectly, affect your life with such huge ripple effects. Like if the NHS becomes privatised, that could end up killing you one day. Like in theory, I'm not saying, I don't want to get into a whole NHS privatisation thing, or maybe talk about that another time, but, you know, if the NHS got privatised and you argued, say it got as bad as America could get, even if one extra person died, that one extra person could potentially be you, and therefore you voting in the election that just went could have actually saved your life in theory, butterfly effect sort of stuff. So with policy making and with politics, people should be, now that there's a bit more of a clear cut of things and there's a bit more of an audience to it in a sense, we should push for, people should learn about it more and be into it more. And I think our generation is doing that, fortunately.
This is one statement. If there's one thing I will take away from the Green Party, is the one statement I heard them make at some point, which is invaluable and everyone should heed to this, is that politics is something that everybody should do. You should do politics, not have politics done to you.
That's perfect. That's absolutely spot on. Yeah,
good.
I agree.
And that was I thought that sums up the picture perfectly. Like the people that have the political apathy to not vote, because even if you're not sure who you would want to vote for, you can probably know sure as hell who you want to keep out and vote for your best chance of stopping them. Which I hate that our political system has to work like that, but it has to work like that.
Yeah.
But people that I say have the political apathy to just not bother to vote, even if you register and then abstain, that's something different because you're like actively not choosing not to vote because you haven't made that decision. But people that just don't even sign up to vote. Yeah.
Also, guys, signing up to votes in the UK does actually help your credit score. So even if you don't want to do that, you could. It literally helps your credit score by a couple of points just registering to vote, not even have to vote. So.
And that, to me, like not registering to vote is the same as the people that essentially skew the results by not bothering to actually investigate what they're voting for and just voting because, I vote Conservative or I vote Labour because my family voted Labour and I vote Labour, I live in a Labour area and there's not much point in doing anything else.
I agree to the majority of what you say. I agree. There's only a couple of small things, which is just with the not voting thing. I now, and especially in the last, I'd probably say 10 years with Britain and America, I'd say you should vote because clearly the difference between, you know, Trump and Hillary, even though I don't agree with either of them, they're both very different people. Same as Obama and Mitt Romney, and was it Obama and John McCain the first time, I think. And basically, and over here, obviously, we've had, you know, Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn, and we had Cameron and Miliband. Was it? Yeah. And so all these things of like, there has been a lot more of a split now. It's a lot more less of, they're both on the right and one's less right than the other. And even though you could argue you should still vote because of that's one's less right than the other, I had it before the Miliband thing. I was a lot more like, they both are terrible. I hadn't looked into it as much as I should have done, but I was like, I don't agree with either of these things. And so, obviously, I should have had the foresight of going, okay, even if you know they're not going to win, vote Lib Dems so they get more seats, or vote Green because they have more seats. And I see it a bit more not like that now. And it's like, even if you think that both the main parties are bad, just vote for some of the small parties, and then they may get an extra seat. And like my brother Rob and my dad used to say, they used to vote for the Green Party. They didn't ever think they'd win, but if they get 1 or 2 seats in, that might have been the reason people got recycling bins. Just you have one person in a room saying, we should fucking recycle. And then the whole public has some sort of positive thing of that, like public going, they should. And then the House goes, you know what? We will do that. You don't need everyone in there to be Green Parties to necessarily have something like that. And all you need is representation. With this whole thing that's gone on into UK politics, bringing it back to the initial issue of or the initial discussion of transgender, is people letting other people tell them how to act and tell them what to do. You know, and making you think in a certain way. There's people who you're too scared to voice your opinion because you're like, everyone's gonna freak out and like call you a racist or a bigot or transphobic or something like that. And people being that this term I don't like using very much. I'm gonna say it anyway. The snowflake sort of thing.
Man,
you can't say anything, but you get offended by everything on the planet. And it's like there has to be a balance with everything. And you can't be the kind of person who thinks all black people are bad because you're in a cul-de-sac in like redneck America and everyone there's all says that black people are bad and you've just never seen a black person, you just assume they're bad. You can't do that, but you also have to have a thing where you have to absorb like information and make your own mind up about things. Even if all your peers believe something, then what you should do is go, okay, you believe that, I'm going to look into your viewpoint and look into the counter viewpoint, which people very rarely do, and then look at them both and go, okay, well, you've brought this subject to my attention now, and you believe this, and that's fine. Now I'm going to look at both sides and make my own mind up. And if everyone did that a bit more, and actually with important things and social issues, actually thought about things a bit more, rather than just jumping on the bandwagon or just aimlessly pointing the finger and blaming, then there wouldn't be this left and right bullshit. It would be so easy to be in the grey middle area.
I think people have become, like I said before, so identified with what they believe in as opposed to
married to their ideas.
Yeah, completely engaged with it all the time.
Perfect term, recreational outrage. Joe Rogan said that. They just want to get angry at something because nothing in their lives to get angry about, so they just, push it on someone else.
They identify with things so much that when they hit something that's disagreeing with them, they get offended by it. It's like, if you just didn't get offended by it, even if you don't get offended, but you're one kind of person who just shuts other things down, a good thing to go back to is the manifesto thing, right? How many people who voted Labour read Jeremy Corbyn's manifesto and didn't read Theresa May's, or whoever it was Theresa May, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who didn't read Theresa May's. Yeah. It's like, people are like scared. It's like, because it also goes back to what we were saying earlier about people on the far left when they think you say a good point and they can't go back to it and they just shut it down. It's like, it's okay to be wrong about something.
Yeah.
The loser isn't the person who was wrong. The loser is the person who is wrong, right? So if we had a conversation about something, even if I was quite passionate about it, and you literally just proved me wrong, I'm not going to dispute a fact. I'm like, oh. Well, it's like, well, cool, now I'm in the right. We're now both in the right. Awesome. Like,
yeah. All that happens with these discussions, there's two options. It's either, if it's something that's purely opinion-based, like, who do you believe should be leader of the parliament or anything like that, or who's your favourite band or anything like that. When there's something that is opinion based, then it's with a discussion, a healthy discussion. The only thing you can do is widen each other's horizons. That's it. That's the only thing that happens with this thing. Yeah. But when it's an empirical fact, like I thought the Slipknot album, the first one, was released in 2000. No, I think it's 1999, and you have a big argument about it, and you finally find out. If you find out when it is 1997,
don't be pissed off you're wrong. Be pissed off that you're now right and you're now correct.
You're now
the knowledge in your head is.
You're now. It's
right.
like, okay, well, up till this point, I was incorrect about something, and now I've actually learned because of this discussion, and that's what I've had to come to grips with a lot. It's because the ego gets in the way. When over the last few years now, you probably may notice to a degree. If I have an argument with someone and they prove me wrong or they change my mind, I'll go, you know what? Hands up, I am 100% wrong here. I do apologise for if depending on what it was. But yep, completely wrong. I'm sorry. It's like, you guys don't then go, yeah, what? You fucking idiot. Oh my god, guys. Do you see that Mike thought that the Slipknot album was released in the wrong year? Oh my god, I thought you liked Slipknot. You fucking did. It's like, no, that's not how people... and if people around you
I used to like Slipknot until I found myself.
if people actually like just accepted and they were like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm wrong sometimes, because everyone's wrong sometimes, because the only way you can really learn from mistakes is when you're wrong. When you're a child, the way you learn to not fall over is you fall over loads of times, and then you go, you know what, that thing I did, the way I did that, let's not do that. So with video games, so with guitar, if you never learned from your mistakes and never admitted you're wrong, no one would ever learn an instrument, because you play the note wrong once, go, never playing this again. Why? Because I can't be wrong on it. I can't play the wrong note. I can't. It's impossible. It's like, no, don't be so...
It just screams insecurity, right?
Yeah.
I'm not to attack anyone, but someone's just...
Everyone's insecure. I'll just be clear. Everyone's insecure to varying degrees, but everyone's insecure.
Right, when you get proven wrong by something, it is mildly humiliating we all know
It is uncomfortable.
Like,
It does.
he's not
It
living an
does.
idealistic world when we're like, yeah, it's completely fine. I'm completely like fucking Spock, and you give me new information. I'm like, yeah, but just like, it's so backwards to be annoyed about it. You've actually just gained knowledge. You're no longer arguing, and you now both agree. It couldn't actually be better.
Exactly. It's literally like, that is the perfect thing. If you were found out you were wrong, and when someone else is wrong, then obviously, I'm not going to lie, there have been times where people say I told you so, but it depends on what context of the things that are, of when and what kind of dynamic you have with a certain person. If my boss at work says something, and I think it's something else, and then I turn out to be right, I don't go, ha, see, I told you so, because that's disrespectful, and not right in that place. If it's us guys, and it is literally just about a character in It's Always Sunny being in a certain episode, and it's like, no, I'm definitely sure it's episode 20, mate, it's 21, that happens like, hey, I told you so, it's like, that's fine. You have to play it. Every situation should be treated as its own individual situation in a sense, but obviously use your knowledge and experience from everything else to understand how things work. That's how it goes.
There's also where we're talking about this a little bit here about, at the moment, this conversation has drifted into the idea of like disagreeing about objective facts.
Yeah.
When you have a discussion that is opinion based,
Yeah.
you will widen each other's horizons and say, okay, and we can both consider both viewpoints.
Yeah.
Unless some people throw their toys out of the pram.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you don't have to change your mind.
No.
No single party has to change their viewpoint.
Exactly.
You can leave it and both agree to disagree.
People can't ever obviously we're not saying we're the humans in the world who figured this out, but it's like, people in general often really don't like just saying, getting to that point where you're both like, I completely respect your opinion, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't fully agree with you. And I think the conversation I had with me and Dom, we did something like that, where we were talking about that sort of thing, or on air or off air, it's just...
Might be to do with the hunting stuff.
Yeah.
Saying along those
Also,
lines.
if you're trying to be civil with someone, or you're having this conversation with one of your friends, and you feel like you're getting annoyed at the conversation because you're disagreeing so much and you're getting passionate, something about you're passionate about, if you start getting annoyed, just be like, just be honest with me. He's probably getting annoyed as well. We're all people. We can read other people.
Yeah.
You clearly get the heat. Argument's getting heated. I'm sure he'd appreciate it, or she'd appreciate it if you was like, we're clearly not going to agree, so we should probably just stop. Because there's no point.
Yeah.
How important is it really to change their mind about whatever fucking small thing this is?
Yeah, but it has to be giving a chance. That's the thing as well, because you can't.
give it
That's
a
the
chance.
problem. Is the between those two things of just saying you say an opinion and I say an opinion, and you go, nope, I don't talk about it. It's like, I'm not saying everyone should have to always talk about something if it makes you uncomfortable. But what I'm saying is you can't always shut everything down, because then you get an echo chamber in your own mind. And if you only talk with people who agree with you, how can you ever... Here's the thing. I think I've heard someone else say this before, so I'm not saying this is necessarily an original thought. But how can you... it's lost it as well. That's perfect. I was just going to say, I had it. It was so close.
Wow, too much preface.
Too much pretense. I do that all the time, and I'm going to remember it as soon as someone else starts talking as well. Yeah. And I was on a roll there, and I've killed it. I'm going to cut this out and make it sound like I know exactly what I was talking about.
Killed my boner right now, man.
I'm sorry, I'm a boner killer. I've actually lost where we were. We were talking about agreeing with each other and what people say is, oh yeah, I found it. I found the thing, guys. Don't worry about it. Basically, some of the best times, best reasons I've found, new reasons to appreciate my own opinion, okay, is when you have a disagreement with someone and they come up with a point that you hadn't considered. Yeah. And sometimes that'll be one of those points where you go, you know what, fair enough, that point I can't defend, but everything else that I believe in still doesn't agree with that. Or you go, that's interesting, and you think about it for a while, and then you think of a counterpoint, and then next time you discuss it with someone or you have your own idea, you've actually got more things because that person came up with another point and another angle that you hadn't considered. So how can you ever think that without discussing your ideas with people that you're always right? It doesn't make any sense because you've never had it to anything to compare to. It's like saying you're the greatest fighter in the world but refusing to ever fight anyone. It's just like, how can you possibly say that? You say your opinion's right and you think that you've got the best opinion or anything if you've literally never discussed it with anyone else.
Yeah, you shouldn't go, oh, I side with left, so everything on the left side I agree with, and I'm going to actually preach even if I don't really fully believe it or know anything about what the fuck I'm talking about. And everything on the right is like, no, that's wrong, I can't be that. It's like, how about you just do you, and then see where you end up?
Yeah.
Crazy thought.
When you look at all with politics, if you go back into that, if you look at all the policies, and almost, you wouldn't necessarily have to do this literally, but if you got every policy, right, and you did a big list of every single policy, and you just did a tick or a cross next to each of them, and then see which ones you like the most, and that's what kind of party you're in. There you go. It's like as Tom said. I said it in the first podcast. I think I said it with him in the podcast I did with him. But in the first podcast, I didn't give him credit. But because I forgot who it was. He said what they should do with politics is not have left and right and any of that. They just have one manifesto called Manifesto A and another manifesto called Manifesto B. And all that happens is that you just literally read through that and then you find out which one you like and in a sense vote for that one. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if people could, there's obviously a lot of flaws in that sort of argument. You can go with the leader and sort of other things, but in that just general idea, even if you use that as a guide of opening up an easier way of doing this idea, it's still of, you can't just vote for the one you've always voted for. You have to, if you're going to vote, you actually have to look into it. You have to, or you can just be an idiot and go, that one, I don't care. But to actually change, the country. And then you could even have like 5 or 6 of them, couldn't you? You could just have, and then imagine what that would be. Imagine what it would be like if, in the next election, they just didn't tell you who was left and who was Labour and who was Conservative. And in America, they never told you who was Democrat and Republican. Obviously, over there, they have a completely different system to the way it works. You have to register for the one party, I think, before.
The thing is that you can tell by the policies.
You can, to a degree, but if you had it much more open, like France, then it wouldn't be like that. Because over here it's obvious, because you get the two, and then you get the Green Party.
Yeah, the opposite,
you get the two main ones, which are left and right at the moment, and then you've also got the Green Party, the Lib Dems, and the whichever one is the most right at the time, whether it's UKIP or BNP or whichever one's getting traction about calling out immigrants.
Pretty much lost itself now.
Yeah, so they have 1 or 2 seats, isn't it?
Conservatives and the Labour Party.
Yeah, but so yeah, we'll just we've gone past the hour mark now, so we'll start to wrap this up in a minute. But with all of the transgender things, it's all, the only thing we're saying was I think the last thing I haven't picked up on was the spectrum thing, which was, we did briefly mention it, of just, I believe, in my personal opinion, I'm not saying anyone else has to necessarily agree with me on this, but in my opinion, I think there are 4 genders, basically, and I think that's male, female, both, and neither. And if they want to be, like, within that, that somehow, some degree of, I don't know, if people want, I don't know how you could split that any further, in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, it's the less obsession with
labeling. It's like there's a spectrum. It's like, well, yeah, it's like the idea of a spectrum is that there's basically infinitely small points between 2 points.
Yeah,
and it's just like, if you can't label them all.
No,
it's like, why should you care? That the side of the left is that you should be accepting, and these things shouldn't matter. So why are you making a big deal out of it? Yeah. If you see someone, they're like, you know, they have very strange traits, like they have very things about them that are quite manly and things that are quite womanly. And, you know, yeah, they come into the discussion and, you know, you say, like, what are you, essentially? Yeah. And they say, like, man or male, female. And it's just like if you transition, and they're like, I'm somewhere in between. It's like, you're not going to go, oh, are you a G? You're an X or whatever the fuck they call it.
Or a Z, like, Zay,
It doesn't matter. Like,
no.
They're just them, and they happen to be feminine and masculine at the same time. Oh, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, it's cool. It's one of the things. All I want to know is, what's your name? Okay, when you tell me your name, then sometimes it'll be one of the things where it's just like, if I say, oh yeah, she does that. Oh, that's actually they actually prefer to be called a he, and I go, okay, sorry, and I'll just be a he, and that's it. And if I accidentally, if you, Rhys, if you got gender reassignment surgery and became a woman, say next year or something like that, then if I accidentally occasionally called you Rhys or said he when I was referring to you, occasionally, because not that I'm being intolerant, but because I'm just not fully used to it yet, because of, like, obviously just memory. I almost said muscle memory then, but that's it. But like, almost vocal memory, you call something for so long. If you told me I could never call the door a door again, I have to call it something else, there's going to be times I'm going to fuck up just because you don't even think. Your brain's just autopilot sometimes. It just, you know? And there's people getting offended by these things. And there's, one of the other things which what we discussed a bit in the Punch and Nazi thing is once you start attacking people for not falling in line exactly with what you believe, and also furthermore like just attacking people based on their labels and all that sort of things, you end up just creating such a hostile environment, and then you take away from the things that are actually important. Like people people saying, you know, you didn't call me the right gender pronoun. There's like 57 of them now. Why haven't you called me the right one? It's like, I want you to have rights. I want you to be able to live your life however the fuck you want. But if you are going to fight me at every fucking step because I think that gender isn't a spectrum, I haven't got a problem with anyone thinking that they're certain amount this, certain amount that, it's just my opinion, or that I don't really think there should be 57 gender pronouns and you should get punished for saying the wrong one. It's just like, I want everyone to just be equal. If you're gay, if you're straight, if you're black, if you're white, I don't care. I don't give a shit. I just want everyone to be on an equal playing field from the get-go. Everyone should have an equal voice and an equal chance at everything. And then you let their actions speak for it. You can have, there's certain gay people I've met who are lovely. There are some gay people there who are cunts. It's got nothing to do with them being gay. Just some people are cunts. That's part of life. I've met people of a variety of nationalities. Some are nice people, some aren't. It's got no reflection on the nationality. It's the same with sexuality. It's the same with gender. There are loads of females I'm good friends with. There are loads of guys I'm good friends with. You know, I generally get along with guys more. Doesn't mean I prefer, and guys are better than women. It's just preference. You know, it's just one of those things. It's just like, but when I meet a woman, I don't go, you know what, I'm not going to like her as a friend. Do you know why? Because she's actually a female, and I only like to have males as friends. It's like, you just meet them. If you get along with them, cool, I don't give a fuck what's between your legs. It's just like,
I just think people are so caught up in everyone else's life and identities and stuff. It's like, why can't you?
I'll tell you why.
It sounds like
they don't like looking inwards.
It's like, for me, it's so simple. I just get up and go to work and just talk to people I like, don't talk to people I don't like. And then go home and just play video games. It's so simple, guys. It's really simple. You have to freak out about fucking pronouns.
The worst part is because a lot of people do it when they're in university and college a lot of the time, and that's when you mix with people that you don't want to mix with. And even though I believe echo chambers of ideas are wrong, you get it where, with my job, obviously I do interact with people who don't have all the same viewpoints, but apart from work, which you have to have this level of professionalism 9 times out of 10, or you, sometimes with your job, obviously you're an IT technician, so the people who are in your direct vicinity of your workplace who you work with directly are IT guys as well. So you work with teachers and stuff as well. But it's like, apart from your workplace, everything else you choose. Not like 100% like you go to the bank and you choose who's going to be at the bank or whatever. It's just like, you choose who you can associate yourself with. You choose what you do as hobbies. I go indoor rock climbing occasionally. There's certain people there who I wouldn't normally talk with. What happens is, I go there, and I don't really talk to those people. I just talk to my mates who I'm with, because it's not, you don't have to put yourself in these sort of situations, you know, you don't think that there's these people who've got these disagreeing ideas, you're just going to walk down the street in public one day, someone's going to jump out and go, boo, what? I disagree with everything you say. It's like the thing in Family Guy, the British people do drive-bys, the way British people do drive-bys, there's drive-by disagreements.
I can't remember.
I mean, Tom quote each other all the time, where it's like, it's got just, some two people have an argument, and it cuts to someone just walking down the street, and then a car pulls up, and then a window goes on, and he goes, Reginald! And he turns and goes, I disagree! And he just drives off. And it's like, love it. Love it.
On the topic of the whole spectrum idea, I agree to a certain extent in the fact that I think there's, you have male, you have female, you have people that are asexual, and that's more sexuality, but that are none.
Yeah.
And both. But in the same way as sexuality, you have straight, you have heterosexual, you have homosexual, and you have bisexual, and you have varying degrees of bisexual where people will prefer men and women to different degrees.
Yeah.
In the same way, the both, by implying that there is a both, by stating there is a both, you imply that there are a varying degrees of both. They don't need labels or everything in between, infinite labels. But you have people that will say, I feel like I am in between the two genders, but I lean more towards this side by some sort of arbitrary amount.
Yeah.
A spectrum, yes, technically has infinite points between them, but you're just looking at it on a kind of just a sliding scale, really.
Well, my way of looking at it is, if you're in that both category, then you can potentially be that way. But my idea is more, you shouldn't say that you're more like a male or more like a female, because I just don't believe that should even be something. That, in my way, that shouldn't come into conversation really ever. Not that people can't do that. That isn't my issue. You can think of yourself as 80% male, 20% female. I don't care. But what it should be is, it shouldn't affect anything. There should be nothing should be affected by it in any way, shape, or form. The only reason you should ever label something in that way is only if you're trying to describe something so specific that there's only one word to talk about it.
Yeah, which is why I came to the point where it's like they don't need labels. It's just you're both in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need a label. It's
exactly.
It's both somewhere.
Because as Rhys said right at the start, and we've all kind of agreed with it, just that all labels do is put people in boxes and either make them have to think in a certain way, or give them the impression that you think they are a certain way, and that's when hostility starts. Yeah. That's when you assume that this kind of person are like that, or this kind of person are like that is the issue. That's when it comes from.
For bisexual people, you don't have individual classifications for, if you used to do it for simplicity's sake. If they were attracted to men, if they were a man and they were attracted to men, I don't know, 63%. More and women with the remainder. You don't isolate that 1%. There's people who like that, that level, they are called this, or this is their pronoun. No one does that. No. Not even you guys who are listening, who may happen to be super liberal. You don't do that. So why are you doing it? why are you doing it with people with a gender? And you would obviously agree that both of those things, like sexuality and gender, they shouldn't matter to people.
No.
That's just the whole thing you're fighting for. So why are you concentrating on one and not the other if it's really that important? You think people just get caught up in this ridiculous fucking leftist cycle, and it is insane.
The problem is that you get these times where as I said, if I think if you're male or female and you want to become one or the other or anything like that, then that's completely fine. I've got no problem with that at all. The issues that I have is now I don't know the answers to these things and where the line should be. That is the problem with these sorts of things. But it's when you get the people who are like, there's that guy who's like 50 years old and he's got like 7 kids, and he said that he is actually an 8-year-old girl in like his body or something to that veil.
This 6-year-old girl or something.
Yeah, and it's just like I can't get along with that. You know,
to be fair, it's one of those things. If he's not hurting anyone, do what you want. I think
he's
it's
got
fucking
family
weird.
and stuff. He's got like a whole family. I'd say
true.
it's the same as just like bailing on them.
I find that really fucking weird, because everyone, even people who would outwardly say that they accept him and stuff and whatever, I accept him as well. But like, we all know that's fucking weird as hell.
Yeah.
Not saying it's a bad thing. It's weird. I guess it's just strange. That's all.
Yeah.
He can do what he wants if it's not going to hurt anyone.
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying is I don't know where the line is, because that sort of example, a lot of people are like, no, I can't understand that. But a lot of things, there's like a girl who she likes to think she's a cat.
Yeah.
And I think she actually goes in a litter box and stuff. And I was like, that's really unhygienic and really gross, having human excrement and urine in a box like out in your house. That's fucking gross. But if you want to kind of live that way, you can. I'm not saying you shouldn't. We should have some sort of fascist government where you find out that someone's doing that and comes in and stop them, because then it becomes this whole thing, which is, I think, with all political things, this is where it all comes down to, and this is what we said about the punching a Nazi thing as well, which is where the line is and who decides what that line is. You know, because like if you started saying, for argument's sake, if you have the people who are a bit more conservative in the traditional meaning of the word, and you go, no, if someone's like that, you know, they can't act like a cat, that's ridiculous. It's like, but how far can you not let it go? Do you then say you can't ever pretend you're something for fancy dress parties? What about if you want to do sexual things and you like role playing, any of these sorts of things? Like, oh, you can do this thing but not that thing. Why? And what I like to try and do with people is, if they disagree with something like that, I try and be like, okay, so you don't like this thing? No. Okay, what about this thing on the opposite side? Like I've said it before with the it's a slightly different example, but with money, you know, you go, would you suck a dude's dick? No, I'd never do that. Okay, what if I give £1 million? Oh yeah, I would do it. Well, I definitely wouldn't do it for less. What, you wouldn't do it for £990,000? What, 10 grand less than $1 million? They go, okay, I would. What, so you wouldn't do it for $500,000? It's like, no, I wouldn't do it for $500,000. Well, you wouldn't do it for a literal free house and like literally you never have to worry about finance again. Okay, maybe I would. 2 million. Not 2 million. Yeah, you can just go down further and further, and eventually you get to an actual point of where people are more agreeing, but their knee-jerk reaction is that initial no. And that's the thing with, once again, it comes to what you were saying about judging people. It's like, as long as this guy isn't, if he's leaving his family, I've heard he's got a family and stuff, so if he is, I don't agree with that, because I don't think as a father, in any sense, you should leave your family behind in that way, unless you've got some sort of horrendous, ridiculous, extraneous thing. There are obviously hundreds of outliers, but in general, if you have a family, you should generally take care of them, you know? And him living as a 8-year-old girl, I don't think he can do that in a good way. And this woman who wants to be a cat, she can do that, but unless she has a proper job, do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't want her just being able, just never having a job or doing anything with her life, say, becoming one of those people who just lives on job seekers and never wants to do anything with her life because she's
a cat.
Because she's a cat. And it's a bit like, I suppose if she's doing that, it's like one of those weird things where it's like, does she have the right to do that? And I'm not saying she shouldn't. I don't know. That sort of question is like, well, she's wanting to be on job seekers and she obviously couldn't afford to live on that, but she's got 2 people living with her.
Not saying it's exactly healthy.
Well, it's not healthy, but she's got 2 people living with her who have got jobs, and they literally treat her like a cat. And that money she gets from job seekers, literally, she don't even see. It just goes straight to them as some sort of way of paying for her. It's like, she's not adding anything to society. But then again, is a cat? Like, I like cats, I like dogs. But in all honesty, is someone acting like a cat, if that's bringing them joy and whoever they're living with joy, how is that any different from someone else having a cat? Do you know what I mean? If they're, you know, there's all these things where it's just everyone always wants to tell other people what not to do or what to do. And it's like, if you're not hurting anyone, then just leave it, you know?
I feel like the short end of the stick is like, for the most part, you do you, people can disagree, as long as no one goes batshit crazy, because then we end up in dystopian society like V for Vendetta.
And also swallow your pride of having an argument with someone and they say something that you know deep down is right. Don't just fucking stick your finger in your ears. Just say, that you agree. You don't have to. It doesn't mean that you validated their entire argument. Now you now side with them. But even if that is the case, cool. You've learned something.
You can also, but
You
people,
can agree.
you can partially agree.
You can agree on points, but not the whole idea behind it.
As I said,
Yeah.
with this whole discussion, I think we'll be wrapping up now. But this whole discussion is like, I'm gonna get Dom on here at some point. I'm gonna have a chat with him about religions, not religion. I've had that chat, but about politics and whatnot. And obviously, I'm left. I'm more left, he's more right. And then I'll get you on there as well, Josh, with Dom, and we'll have a bit more discussion about this sort of thing. And it will be an example of what happened with me and Dom with the religious one, where it's just showing also like this, where you didn't all agree with each other all the time, and it's fine. Where you can, as you say, you don't have to agree on the entire ideology of the other person, but if they make valid points, then you should do that. You should not stick to your teams as much. Be more open-minded, and just be accepting of people for their thoughts and who they are, and just don't be a cunt. When I have a kid, that's going to be the thing I tell them, like when they're old enough. It's just don't
when he's
be.
5.
When he's 5 years old, tell him don't be a cunt.
son.
More just like my whole kind of mantra is just do what you want as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. Just don't be a dick. That's it. Simples as that. Right then, I think we've covered a nice amount of ground, guys. Thank you both for coming on the podcast again, and I'll see you guys later.
See ya.
Bye.
And that's the end of another episode. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. As I said in the intro, next week I won't be releasing an episode because I'm away camping. But the week after that and the week after that, it will be episodes released then. I've got part 1 and 2 of a chat with the YouTuber Steph The Crab. And if you're not actually into YouTubers or aren't aware who she is, obviously I'd say go look her up. But even if you're not that interested in her YouTube content, the conversation that we have is really interesting. She's very open and honest. We speak about sex, relationships, bullying. She talks about some of the darker sides of when she was being bullied and things like that. And it's just a great chat, whether or not you know who she is or are interested in who she is. I really recommend listening to that chat. Don't forget, guys, to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, subscribe on YouTube and the usual podcast apps, review us on iTunes if you feel like we deserve it, or rather me deserve it, because it's just me who does this. And as always, I really appreciate each and every one of you listening, especially all the way to the end. So thanks as always, guys, and I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.